And if I had to make a choice of having better emotions in my 20s, or having the results that I got instead, I would rather have the negative emotions that I experienced and keep the results.
Yeah.
They'd say, "Oh, I felt a lot. It felt a lot lighter. I'm broke and dumb,
Yeah.
but man, I had a good time in my 20s. It felt nice.
Yeah.
I would never trade that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up unnecessarily, but you got to go do the work first. You don't get to go meditate when you didn't do enough work. You don't get to go feel good about yourself when you're a bum and you're not making the effort to go do something significant. Like you're a person that's doing that is really setting themselves. You're lying to yourself about what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the same energy in your 50s as you do in your 20s. You're not going. It's not.
Well, the thing is, too, the people that are watching this, they obviously want to progress in some fashion.
Today I'm chatting with Chase Sherman. Chase has been in the UFC since 2017. He got 16 wins in his professional record, 15 by knockout. So when Chase wins a fight, a lot of his opponents you got to take a little nap or recover afterwards. But what I didn't know, you mentioned earlier that you started off in some bare knuckle fighting in the home of bare knuckle fighting down in Mississippi.
Yeah. So my first stint in the UFC, after I gotten released, I was, going back on the regional scene and trying to get some more MMA wins so I can get, the call back. But while doing that, obviously, fighting on a regional MMA show isn't, very financially advantageous.
You must have made hundreds of dollars per fight.
yeah. But it has to be done, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so then bare knuckle BKFC came along and they started doing their shows there in South Mississippi, where I'm from, on the coast, and so I was like, let me just give this thing a try. And they were paying a lot more money, obviously, than these regional MMA shows. And so, while I was in the fire department, I did 3 bare knuckle fights. I won the title in my second fight, and then UFC called me back in 2020, and I was on that card, the first card they had back in Jacksonville. So, yeah, it's bare knuckle's blown up tremendously in the last 3 years. So, it's nice to know that there's that, I could potentially fall back on if I want to go back to it. I really enjoyed the bare knuckle boxing. People think it's somewhat too barbaric, but really, in all honesty, an MMA fight is much more taxing on the body as far as that goes. Even if you were just talking just punches alone, just because our hands aren't covered, you know what I mean? You get more lacerations from bare knuckle, but it's, your equilibrium isn't getting jarred as much because it's not covering as much surface area as a glove, So the knockouts are kind of, you don't see a whole lot of, knockouts that are cold, you know what I mean? So the punches there got to be pretty precise, So, but I enjoyed it. It was definitely something kind of freeing about being in there with no gloves on.
My buddy Paulie Malignaggi, he was helping me for over a year. We worked on boxing together, and he did a bare knuckle fight, and he said some similar things, that you have a lot less trauma in general, where if you're wearing gloves, you have just a lot of repetitive traumas versus a bare knuckle fight is decided a lot less strikes, a lot less impact to win or lose a fight. He did a bare knuckle fight for BKFC, broke his hand in the second round, and that didn't work out so great for him. We still went 5 rounds, but he lost by decision. He didn't throw one right hand for his last 3 rounds.
Yeah.
But he said similar things about it.
Yeah, and he fought Artem, if I remember correctly. But it was, and boxers kind of had a little bit of you had some of these pro boxers coming in and fighting a lot of these, former pro MMA guys, and I think a lot of the boxers had a little bit more difficult time adjusting than the MMA guys did, because even though it is just boxing or fighting, boxers aren't used to seeing the angles and the different punches that you can create and land without a glove on, whereas MMA guys are used to seeing, you know what I mean, sneaking things in there different ways, whereas you're not going to land a flush shot, you know, in some of these angles that you're throwing with a boxing glove on, you know. So I feel like that was it's one thing I noticed, at least with it, when it kind of got started off.
I'll say for your hands over time, and this may be smart or dumb, I don't know, but I don't like wearing boxing gloves. So from striking stuff, and I'm not a pro fighter, I'm not trying to be a pro fighter, but yeah, I'd like to have better skills there. But I like just hitting things. My skin holds up pretty well. I got a little callus on my knuckles from just hitting pads or hitting the bags. Just barehanded, and I like that more because, you know, when you have your hand in a glove, you don't really have, it's not a, and then you got wraps on your wrist. Like, if I have a conflict in life, it's going to be in a real world situation, not in the street. And I feel like I should be training myself for self-defense, not for, you know, the sport of boxing or something like that. I'm not going to have wrist wraps. I'm not going to have a glove. You know, training my body to do something different. And I feel like the time that I would need to hit somebody, I'm going to break my hand or some shit because I got bad form or I'm used to those wraps, and then I'm going to be in a bad situation, you know? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And too, a lot of people don't think about this as well, but it affects your range as well. Because, I mean, you're thinking about, you're used to hitting pads or the bag or sparring or whatever. If you're constantly doing that with big gloves on, you're talking about, you know, a padding that's, you know, potentially this much, you know. And so you're used to, you know, hitting that with that added on. You go switch to an MMA glove or a bare knuckle, and you're off by, you know, a few inches, and a few inches is a major deal in fighting. So you'll see a lot of fighters as their fights, you know, getting closer to happening, that they will switch to MMA gloves when they hit pads or bags, or even when they spar, they'll switch to MMA sparring gloves, and that's just to kind of dial in the range a little bit better.
Yeah, you know, the gloves make sense to me for sparring, but if I'm hitting pads or the bag, I don't like wearing gloves or wrist wraps. I just want to train my body to hit the way that I would have to in a real life situation to defend myself, you know. What got you into, you know, I don't know, martial arts to begin with? What was the first thing you started training, and what was that journey like for you as a young man coming up?
So, I played football my whole life, and so you know, I was always kind of dedicated to that. But I always enjoyed watching, you know, fighting, and you know, it started taking off whenever I was in high school, 14, 15 years old, and you had The Ultimate Fighter, the first season of that, and everything was kind of progressing. And then we were having a lot of shows on the coast, and I would go to those and watch those. And I worked at a local gym whenever I was 16, and I would watch some of the guys hit pads there and things like that. And I was just like, that's just something I wanted to do, you know. We ain't got much to do back where I'm from, and kind of the tradition, you know, of the culture where I went to school was, you know, you just heard about coming up was just, you know, fighting and playing football. And so, like, I was just like, it's kind of just how I was brought up. And, you know, there was no real, like, boxing gyms down there or anything like that. But so we just were, you know what I mean? We're just young boys that just loved to, like, get into it and scrap. And so we'd constantly, you know, go looking for trouble. and found out I was somewhat decent at fighting and didn't mind getting hit in the face. And then I got done playing football, and I was like, I just can't go sit behind the desk. And you know what I mean? I still just had a real competitive drive about me, and I wanted to do, you know, I wanted to compete in something and be successful at it. And I didn't have the genetics to go play in the NFL. I didn't have, like, the size, you know, and so I was like, well, let me start doing MMA now that I'm done with football, because I said I was going to do it anyways. And there was a couple of friends of mine up in the Delta where I played ball at that were training in just a garage, and so I would start going there, and you know, all we did was just spar and beat the shit out of each other, just, you know. And then when I got done with school up there, I moved back home on the coast and started working with John Dixon, a little bit, and then Alan Belcher had saw a couple of my amateur fights and was like, "Hey man, come train with us at the gym," and that was the big gym down there, and so I went over there, and then the rest was history. That was about 10 years ago, about 11, 10 years ago, something like that.
I'm just laughing at my own childhood of some of the kind of shithead things that I did as a kid, or
Yeah.
just being a rambunctious young man.
It was like the high schools were like you looked at them like they were like not they were gangs. So you know what I mean? It was just like we not essentially like doing crime, but it was always like this school versus this school and vice versa. I remember they would never invite guys from D'Iberville to the parties, but we'd show up anyways, and we'd be with tank tops and football shorts on and sneakers, and they'd be like, "Y'all don't look like y'all are here to party," and somebody would just always, pop off, and then go time, and just the adrenaline from that, you know what I mean? It just kind of was like you get like a hunger for it, and when I got done playing football, I was just like, I need to do something else. Because I can't be going around I'm a grown adult now. I can't be going around getting in fights with people just because I enjoy fighting, you know what I mean? And it never was really about wanting to like inflict pain on somebody. It was just about the competition of it, you know what I mean? And it was just raw. It was just you versus me. It's very primal, and it was just something about it. I felt like it was always a testament to who you were as a young man and a man,
Did you start going to MMA gyms originally then, or so you weren't training, just boxing or just wrestling or just something you?
Yeah. Like I said, the boxing and kind of like we don't have much combat sports training in that little area that we're in. You know what I mean? As far as that goes, so like there was no boxing gyms really at all. There's barely MMA gyms. And so, I just started going to, the MMA gyms and doing work there. And I always, I felt I had a knack for striking, you know what I mean? I always thought I had decent hands, like naturally, not as a trained athlete. When I first started going to the gym, I got humbled real quick. But, that's what I just enjoyed was, fighting with my hands. And so I picked that up fairly quickly. And grappling, obviously, it just takes time, and I feel like there's just so many more like intricate pieces that you have to study and understand, and techniques and everything than striking. So that
I got my little blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I should have a purple belt in the next couple months over the summer.
That's awesome.
But I've been working on that quite hard. Gilbert's helped me some with that. And who else from your gym? Derek Brunson. I trained with Derek a few times. Gilbert quite a bit. Henry a bit, Ong, Tyrone at the gym. Shout out to Tyrone. He's a character.
Oh, I love him, man.
So yeah, I picked up a lot of things from guys from your gym, from striking and some grappling stuff, obviously, also with Gilbert and Derek. But
yeah,
I've never. I'm 44. I'm not going to be a pro fighter.
Yeah.
But it's just fun for me. It's been good for my fitness. It's been good for, just...
Yeah.
I had plenty of, kind of like what you said, as a kid, without the trained fighting part, but just being a shithead kid and a bigger guy, and you guys try to challenge you once in a while. And usually that didn't work out too good for them, and once in a while it didn't work out so good for me.
Yeah.
But I kind of had that sort of mentality early on. But I was always curious about, martial arts, and never had any seriousness about it until my early 40s, and just started training a couple of years ago. But been good for my fitness. Been fun overall.
Yeah, well, it's just good to go out and test yourself. You know what I mean? It's just it's just good for the mental fortitude. It builds character, and obviously, I think that it's something that you need to. Everybody should have some sort of self-defense training, or be able to protect themselves, or wherever the case may be. But that used to be like used to be a checkbox back in the day that was checked off. Everybody knew how to at least defend themselves. I'm talking about hundreds of years ago. civilization. Like, you know what I mean? Like men knew how to protect themselves, at least some basics in fighting, and that's kind of, you know, gotten away from
even
that.
longer. Even if you go back to, you see writings from the era of like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and this is 2,500 years ago
Oh
in
yeah.
ancient Greece. And during that time, it was expected that a man is supposed to have a decent level of fitness
Yes.
and be able to protect his family or protect his honor, type of thing. That you're supposed to, and there was a lot of the origins of wrestling go back
Oh, absolutely.
to that era. So, or if you think of Spartan culture at the same time, which is maybe a more extreme version of it, but also in the same region of the world, that you probably know the history of the Spartan warriors, and it was very much expected that
the Eastern practices, Eastern culture as well. Coming up with samurai, and then everything like all those different types of warriors throughout history. But I mean, like up until like the 20th century, I feel like that's when it kind of the shift started to be like that's not as important as becoming maybe like establishing yourself as a man, like financially or things like that. You know what I mean? As far as like,
I like the financial part too, but if you can just get bullied in the street.
Oh yeah. Well, now it's just like people will say whatever, and then they could call the cops, and you know what I mean. Their ass is good to go.
I don't want to walk this down a path that's controversial for you,
Yeah,
but it seems like if you had like a daughter, would you like your daughter to date a man who's totally useless and could just get punked and bullied by anybody, or it'd be nice. It seems like you'd want somebody to be able to, it's like to protect your family. A man should be able to take care of his family, protect his family, and not be useless.
Yeah, I think it's just like I said, it's an innate like primal instinct as far as like being a man, but culture over time has kind of pushed that away. But I mean, I think it's just something good to be able to do. You need to be able to train, be able to practice some sort of martial art, or, like I said, it's good for the mental. And most people need to realize that they're not made of glass. You know what I mean? You got to get hit in the face a couple of times and realize, oh, like I'm still here. Like I'm more durable than I thought I was.
I was joking with you, and when you showed up today, that different times I've seen you at the gym training, and I bet I've seen a couple of your fights too. But at the gym specifically, there's guys all different sizes and weight divisions there. And I look at these little fellas. Nothing against them, no disrespect. Some of them are extremely talented, but I look at some of these guys that are fighting at 135 or the smaller weight divisions, and they're a foot shorter than me or you, and they can kind of pick each other up and toss each other around and scramble quick. And, and I'm looking at that, and I'm like, I don't think my body could ever move that way. This wouldn't work out good. And then I see you and a couple of the other bigger fellas in the gym moving at a cadence. It looks a lot more relatable to me. I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it gets taxing, and that's what the thing is. Like a lot of heavyweights, they understand that, and so like going with some of the guys around here, like we know, like, hey man, let's not try to pick each other up and slam each other in the heads. Like it's a lot different when you're, you know what I mean. You got 250-pound guys, and, grappling and punching each other in the face and all these different things, even if the striking and sparring, like you got to be able to try to take care of each other, because if we throw like some of those other guys do, like with the gloves on, it's you know what I mean. People are going to be getting slept left and right practice.
Yeah, one of my buddies says that is one of the heavyweight fellas. He says, Derek, you can't be trying to be like one of the small guys or move like one of the small guys. These little guys hit each other 100 times and they barely got a bruise. And the heavyweight guys, if you hit somebody once, that might be enough. Or 3 good strikes, they're probably in trouble. You won the fight.
Yeah, it's a different animal.
I see a lot of guys. You're in your early 30s right now, and I'm a decade plus older. But I see a lot of guys that they show up, or through their 20s, they still have some enthusiasm, but have a hard time with setbacks, or have a hard time even if things are going well consistently. Staying motivated, showing up. And how have you felt that? You got a lot of fights, you got a lot of experience now. What is that why or that big motivator for you that helps you to keep showing up and make a serious effort?
Well, I think for me, my why is that I still haven't fulfilled what I set out to do. I haven't fulfilled my purpose. And actually the fact that I've been doing it for so long and I haven't reached that point yet is why it even motivates me more, because it's like, okay, I've put in all these years and all these reps and all, you know what I mean? Like, I would feel like it would be not all for nothing, because that's really kind of a harsh way to kind of look at it. But it would, if I don't reach the goal that I want to reach, and I've put in all this time and dedication, then it's like, it's even a little bit harder to swallow. And so, that's my big motivator. And is I have to fulfill my purpose, or what I want my purpose to be through fighting. And then, I think it's important too to constantly to go into the gym with a beginner's mindset, and realize, and look and try to learn something new every day, because that's how you stay, focused. But this is all new to me. So when I came out here to South Florida, I got back to really enjoying the process, because I was learning new things, and it was just fresh. It was almost like a fresh start, and I was really able to just completely dive into my craft. And so it's just, I think it's just part of, being kind of present in the moment and enjoying what you do, like being in love with the process versus constantly be fixated on a particular outcome. So
I've seen Greg Jackson's come through a couple times. Helped me with a few things and came and trained with me. And he's helped me with a lot of elbow stuff. I like that guy. He's a quirky character, but really smart man. He's a really smart man. I like him.
He's kind of like one of those, just kind of like this Danaher.
John Danaher.
Yeah. He's Greg Jackson was one of the coaches that was kind of looked at like that. And then there's a couple other coaches out there that are kind of, you give off those kind of vibes as well.
Yeah, very different personalities. I've been happy to spend time with Danaher a few times. Invited me to his gym. We've done interviews together, had dinners together, invited me to other training with Gordon and stuff. And really sharp guy. Danaher's, I don't know if you spend time with him, but you're just very, very sharp guys. Not only like a really, kind of the expert at what he does, but has a broad education or a lot of broad knowledge in other areas too.
Yeah, and so does Greg as well. The thing that was good about Greg was like his niche was just, he studied the game, and he was really good at creating game plans and strategies for the fight. It's not like he was had a bunch of hands-on martial art experience coming up, but he just kind of dove into that craft and completely broke it down and analyzed it, and he would create a really good game plan after watching film, and then you would just go out there with Wink and some of the other guys and you just drill it and implement that game plan. And I think a lot of that is where John Jones got his passion and desire for being like a student of the game. Like John's got the best fight IQ I've ever came across, and that's because he spends hours and hours and hours of breaking down film.
He looked really impressive. I never met John. He looked really impressive, and he looks really impressive all the time.
Yeah.
He looked very impressive in that last outing, and I think he's gonna give some guys trouble in your division.
Oh, I mean, back was like 5 or 6 years ago when I was training with John. Me and John were pretty close. I mean, we still talk. We were sparring partners, but I always would tell him like, "Hey, man, why don't you fight at heavyweight?" You know, he's like, oh, I don't, those guys, y'all too, I'm trying to get hit by y'all big guys and this. And I'm like looking at him like, you're walking around like 240 right now, man. Like you know what I mean? You got the frame to the whole, you know what I mean? Like to, hold the weight fairly easily. I mean, look at your brothers. I mean, you know.
Football
And
players.
so I knew it was only a matter of time before he moved up to heavyweight. And so here he is. I don't know if it'd be as exciting to you, but like one thing that I've really dove into recently in the past couple of years, probably about a year and a half or 2 years, is just the mental side of fighting and the different modalities that we don't do, practices we don't really implement as fighters in order to prepare your mind for fight.
I'm very fascinated about psychology.
Yeah.
I think most of the money I made is I'm a good business person, but I'm a very good psychologist. And kind of the crossroads of that of understanding human behavior and, in the stock market, if you can understand how humans are likely to behave over a period of time, there's an awful lot of money to be made there. If you understand the financial assets and what to buy based on those behaviors, there's a lot of money there. So I'm very fascinated by psychology. But how do you think about that in the context of your career?
So, if we look at sports in general, or most of anything really, where there's some sort of like competition, majority of it is all mental. And people will say it all the time. Before you go into a fight or a competition, they really don't know what they're saying, I guess, or the significance behind what they're saying. Get your mind right. Is your head in the game? Is your mind right? This and that. And we all realize that, our mental framework is key to performance, but nobody has been talking about, okay, well, how do we do that? How do we get our mind right? How do we make sure that it's in, the proper framework in order to perform like we want to perform? And so I really dove off into that a couple years ago, and and that came along with the mental health, and then neuroscience, psychology, spirituality. It's all kind of interwebbed and synonymous with each other, I found. And so a couple of the things that I started really implementing was one, the huge one is meditation. And I feel like that's something that is underutilized in combat sports, or it's gotten away from, because, if you look at the, Eastern culture, traditional martial arts from, thousands, hundreds of years ago, that's all they, a lot of them they did. Even today with the Shaolin monks and all those guys, they meditate and they do martial arts. And so, those are what meditation teaches is basically to get out of the mind and into the body, and not let exterior circumstances dictate your internal environment. And so when you're in a fight, you have all these different emotions and different feelings flowing through you, and different thoughts, and it really adheres you from performing the way that that you're capable of.
I go back and forth on this topic with some people, and I hope this don't turn into a bare knuckle fight, what I'm going to say about it. But because you're more talented than me. You're both big and you're more talented, so it might not be good for me. But I think I'm not anti-meditation. And I think some people, it makes a lot of sense the way you said it. It makes a lot of sense the way some people use it. I think some people, it's a procrastination technique for them that, you're not skipping training to go meditate. You're not skipping your, the rest of your workouts and your, both keeping your body healthy, building a skill set to go meditate.
Yeah.
But some asswipe out here will hear that say, oh, less work and more meditation.
Yeah, more sitting around.
And that's the nonsense that gets propagated on the internet of like, I need to do more recovery and meditation for my mental health.
Yeah.
And I think, no, you're just no, you haven't done any work yet. You haven't done any work yet.
Yeah.
Just, go do the work first. And that might be a nice addition on top of the work after you did all the trainings you'd anticipate. and then did even more than the other guys, because if you want a better outcome, you're going to have to do more than them. And then, and then the other exercise things, diet things, you don't have to diet as much as a heavyweight, but some of the guys are dropping 15% of their body weight. And so when people come to me and they say, I say, oh, what have you been doing for your financial goals? And mind you that these people pay me a lot of money to help them to make money. And then I say, oh, what are your goals? What are you working on? Oh, I've been working on my meditation. And I'm like, shut up. See, what do how are we going to make some money?
Yeah. They're like, well, I've been manifesting my
exactly.
And it's like, that's great, and you can have all the knowledge in the world about a particular field or whatever the case may be, but if you're not implementing, the practices, if you're not, doing the things that you're supposed to do, you know what I mean? You can't just sit on the couch and then, think about throwing a good jab or watching film constantly and then never practice it and then go out there and just expect to do, you have to obviously do the physical repetition. But really what I'm talking about is, if we're already doing the physical work, you have to be able to, if you're an athlete or whatever the case may be, you have to, train your body, obviously physically. But once you're already there and you're competing with somebody that's on the same, physical skill level, then obviously you have to implement your mental part of the game. And that's why fighters always, talk shit, or try to get in somebody's head and this, have that slight, because as a fighter, if I can, even if the guy across from me is better than me, if I know that I'm got him second guessing himself, if I know, you know what I mean, like then you're in my world now, and you're fighting my fight, and I'm relaxed, I'm comfortable, I'm in the moment, and you're constantly, fueled by thought instead of actually doing. So
I don't disagree with any of that. I don't disagree with anything you said, but I'll just make the point to them again. Like, this is a guy that's already doing the physical work. He's already showed up to practice and more practice. And if you're in training camp, how many days a week are you going to practice? Sometimes 2 a day, probably.
Oh, I have to, because I have to take at least one day, one practice off, because it's just so physically taxing on the body. But yeah, twice a day, Monday twice, Tuesday twice. I usually take Wednesday morning practice off, and then Thursday twice, and then Friday, and then you add in 2 of the my strength and conditioning sessions in there, so sometimes 3 times a day. Saturday is conditioning. So shit,
So Tuesday, it's a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, that's twice a day.
All
right, and then Friday, Wednesday and Friday, so that's 8 MMA workouts, 8 MMA training sessions.
Yeah.
And then another 3 or 4 physical.
Two strength and conditioning sessions as well. So, at least 10 times.
10, 12 time workout, 10 or 12 workouts per week.
Yeah.
Then go do some meditation if you want to.
Or just do
the work first.
Do it when you wake up. It's just 10 minutes. You know what I mean, or whatever before you go to bed. Whatever, just if that get yourself in the mental framework to where you can be unshakable. You know what I mean, and obviously do the physical as well. To where you're in peak performance. But there's been times where I know I'm in peak performance, and my mental's not right, and I'll go out there and perform like shit. And it's like, fuck, it's so frustrating because I know what I'm capable of doing. It's just all about letting go and doing it. And then there's been times where, I've had fights on, 2 weeks notice, barely any training. And I'll go out there with the mentality of, wait, let me rephrase that for your people watching back home. It's not that I didn't train, you know what I mean? It's just I get a call on short notice and for a fight, and have to try to prepare on 2 weeks. But, there's been times when I've had short notice fights and go out there and I'm just like, you know what I mean? And you just let it go, and I'm completely in the body and don't care about, my mental is right, and I outperform, any version of myself where I've been training for 2 months and, I'm in a shit kind of cognitive state.
Nothing wrong with meditation, but do the work first.
Yeah.
Do the
Yeah.
Meditation is not your primary strategy to sit on the couch and visualize something. So, oh, I'm manifesting my first $1 million. No, you're just procrastinating your day away.
Yeah.
So go do the work, and then you can do that.
One thing I was going to ask you is, like, that kind of pertains to that is, whenever you started off on your journey to becoming successful, were you constantly, like, was your head in the future constantly, like, working towards particular goals?
Yeah, mostly.
Or so along that, like, did you enjoy the process while you were doing it, or did you take it in, or?
I grew up poor. This is not something foreign to you. You would have seen or either experienced or seen plenty of this in, Biloxi Golf Cart area.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't have shit. My dad was the largest cocaine trafficker in my county's history. So when I was a kid, like a child, we had like 5 houses and 16 vehicles and a lot of nice luxury. Now, those are usually somebody owed him money and they'd give him something.
Yeah.
And it's not that he wasn't out buying all this shit because he wanted it necessarily. But he went to prison when I was a kid, and for 15 years. And then I sat around the house with my half crazy, obese mom and collecting welfare because the government took all the stuff we had.
Yeah.
So it was, we really didn't have money. All that was gone. So, but I seen that, and that was a good motivator. That I'm like, oh, like it's nice to have a lot of, the freedom that money allows you.
Yeah.
I was kind of just a pissed off kid that I was like, well, this sucks, and how do we get back to that? But in a sustainable way. I didn't really like the long prison sentence part.
Yeah.
That didn't seem like a lot of fun to me. But so I did plenty of mischievous things as a child. But I was very focused on like what I don't give a fuck about my short-term emotions. I still don't give a fuck about my short-term emotions. I just I like outcomes. I like to win. I like to have good results.
So you're already mindful, essentially, within that process, because you, like we were just talking about, you don't let, your external environment dictate what's going on internally. Like, you realize that there's going to be shit and there's going to be problems and there's going to be all these different things, but you solely focused on achieving that particular goal. Whereas a lot of people, they'll let things that happen around them or the emotions that stir up within them pretty much paralyze them. People shy away from anything that makes them feel discomfort versus kind of leaning into it.
That's where all the growth is.
Yeah,
I don't think
absolutely.
you disagree. It's like you're not gonna learn a lot of new things or develop new skills at a time that you're comfortable.
No,
you have to be uncomfortable by definition to go to be better.
Yeah, and that's one thing too that kind of got me on that path was like all these different things started going on in my life, and it was just like everything was kind of just falling apart, and I had no control over it. I couldn't, But the one thing I could control or figure out how to control was the way I responded to it. And Like, I feel like once you get out of that victim mentality and realize that we're responsible, not responsible for the things that happen to us, but we're at fault for it, but we're responsible for the way that we respond to it. We're responsible for fixing it in that sense. So we're responsible for our own suffering. And so, like, learning the lessons there and being able to not let that shit happen, that's key, because life, it'll throw some curveballs at you.
When you're a young man, me or you or plenty of other people watching here, when you're a young man, if you're good at something, you might have plenty of people tell you, oh, you got a lot of potential. Oh, the kid's got a lot of potential. Now, there's a cruel moment that happens in life. It's called your 30th birthday. And when a man turns 30, he's never again Do you hear people tell you about your potential anymore after 30?
No, no,
I don't hear about that shit. When I was a kid, you got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
When you're an adult man, people don't think, oh, he's got so much potential. He's 47. He's got so much potential. They think, no, it's what has he accomplished so far, and there's a strong bias towards what has he accomplished recently, and that's how the world's going to judge you in general.
Yeah.
And is that always fair? I don't know. Maybe not. But that's reality. And that personal responsibility thing, I love that. I had that thought, harshly but deeply when I was about 10. I was like, well, your dad can't do anything for you. Your mom can't even help herself. And, nobody's coming to save you, And that's not a fun thought as a child, but that changed my whole damn life and made it fantastic, really. I was thinking, well, what can I do to make things a little better?
Yeah.
And I really had that thought starting then. What could I do to make things a little better? What else can I do? What else can I do?
Yeah.
And to your original question, I think that's in phases. I think there's a long time in my life through my teens and my 20s where I was probably was a more anger-based motivation. And
negative reinforcement.
Yeah, I just I would say things to myself. I have this on the wall in my training room. I built a couple. A lot of people have trained over at my place. I built a couple gyms and spent $3 million on a couple gyms for my own personal use. And on the wall over there, one of them says, it's an old quote that I used to say to myself all the time. It says, "Are you behaving like a champ or a chump?" And I wasn't thinking about combat sports. I was thinking about business mostly. But I used to say that to myself so frequently, way more than 10,000 times. And it just those. When you're day to day, you're making those little micro decisions that you're supposed to be doing. But you're being a little bit of a bitch, or you're procrastinating a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just ask myself that: is this the behavior that would lead to a champion type outcome, or just some chump, just some average normal person stuff?
Yeah.
And I used to torment myself with that, and I'd be like, "All right, go do the thing you're supposed to do now,"
Yeah.
And you're another one. I'd say, well, your goals don't care about your excuses.
No.
You could have your excuses. You could validate your excuses, or you could validate your goals. Which one are we going to work on today? Everybody's got great excuses. You got great excuses. The smarter or more accomplished somebody is, they got better excuses, more complex ones.
Yeah.
So your goals don't care about your excuses.
No, they don't. Discipline is the key to everything that you want, whether it's materialistic or a little bit more internal, emotionally, your mind frame. It's all discipline, and doing the shit that you don't want to do is what really is going to give you the things that you want. You know what I mean? And delayed gratification for a long-term goal, or even a short-term goal is key, and being disciplined. And we live in a world now, a society that has created instant gratification, right here at our fingertips. Everything, and what it's done is it's really crippled us, because people no longer are striving to, achieve their dreams or their goals or anything like that, because they're getting their gratification instantly right here with whether it's through social media or whether it's through, whatever the case may be. Even something as, grocery delivery service, you know what I mean? It's like everything you need to, you don't have to get out and go do it. And so it's frying everybody's dopamine baselines, which is your chemical motivator to you know what I mean? So you look at that through society now, and it's like, it's everything, essentially.
You know why that's a good thing? I think it's a terrible thing. You know why it's a good thing for you and for me and for a few people here that are actually motivated? It's never been easier in human history to stand out.
Yeah.
The competition has never been so distracted. The competition's never been so weak. You touched on this earlier, like what passes for a man today would, my grandparents, my World War II generation grandparents that, dealt with the Great Depression, Holocaust, World War II, these type of things. It wouldn't be recognizable. They wouldn't consider that a man today. It's not a responsible adult. And I agree with everything you said. And I think the personal responsibility is tremendously important, and that delayed gratification, is tremendously important. If you can do that, for yourself, if you can delay gratification, have the discipline to be responsible, you can have whatever you want. And most people aren't even competing against you. Most people they're distracted with their phone, they're distracted with a video game, they're meditating before they did the work. They're doing all these things that are not goal oriented. So for the few people that set serious goals and are willing to put in that effort, I mean, you can stand out very significantly compared to the very weak competition out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I've even found myself, the majority of people do, but I've even found myself, like, trying to find ways around certain things in order to obtain a goal, or little tricks or hacks or just whatever the case may be. And, whether it's having conversations or looking up information or whatever the case may be. And it all stems back to there's no way around it. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to do the things that you essentially don't want to do. Because like you said earlier, there's nobody's going to come and save you. When I moved out here, my wife had gave me divorce papers kind of out of nowhere. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get my shit and I'm moving to Florida. You know what I mean? And I should have done this 5 or 6 years ago when it came to my career, but I never really pulled the trigger, when you're in a marriage or you have kids or whatever the case may be. But things kept progressing over the time, and I found that if the universe wants you to make a move and you refuse to do it, sometimes they'll leave you no choice. And when I got out here, I realized, I was like, well, there is nobody out here that's gonna really come and save me. It's just me, and I had to fucking tie my boots up and put my hard hat on and get to work, because I knew that if I didn't, I was gonna be in a mental framework that wasn't good for anybody. And so that's a key point, is that nobody's gonna come and save you. You're gonna have to do it yourself.
An open thought I had in my head from earlier, from a question you asked, is that I said in my 20s or my teens and 20s, I was a lot more kind of fear-based motivation or anger-based motivation, and that worked great for me, by the way. And I didn't have a better model. I don't think that's the best model.
No.
I thought of better models later. I'll describe that in a minute here. But you know what? It fucking worked. And if I had to make the decision of oh, Derek, did you use a lot of negative self-talk? Did you say mean words to yourself? Yeah, I said mean words to myself every day. But I got results. Right? Now, there's a point, a bit younger than you, maybe I was, 30, 31, something like that, where I thought, you know what? You got a long track record of being responsible. You got a long track record of showing up for your success. You keep your word consistently with others. You keep your word consistently with yourself. You're not scared of hard work. You set goals. You've accomplished a lot of goals. And I thought to myself, do you still need to say a lot of mean things to yourself to keep doing that? And I said, well, let's use that as a fallback plan. But since you're going to do the shit anyway, and you've been doing hard things for a long period of time, you've built those neural pathways, as you touched on earlier, why don't you be in the best mood you could be in while you're doing it? Why don't you be as positive as you can, be in the best mood that you can, so long as you don't start lying to yourself or the results don't fall off, you know? And that's why I'm so cheery today. As you can tell, I'm a ball of joy and cheer. So I wasn't always this joyful. So
Yeah.
but that helped me a lot. That later on I thought, well,
Yeah.
if you're going to do the thing anyway, you might as well be in the best mood you can and enjoy the present moment more, instead of being so fixated on the future that you're. I hate to say it this way, but sacrificing the present moment to build a better future, which I just think you're investing in your future. I don't think it's a sacrifice.
Well, I think
you could do it. You can do both. You could be in a good mood now, building a better future.
Enjoying everything you've already done for yourself in having gratitude, while still being motivated to achieve more. You know what I mean? Is important, because if you're constantly looking for growth, and you're constantly looking in the future, then you're not taking a minute to look around and look at everything you've already accomplished. You know what I mean? And really appreciate. Not to say like you're done, I'm finished, but like, hey, sometimes, it is just you. And like you said, you got to give yourself a pat on the back too. You know what I mean? Because I was the same way. I was always, motivated by negative reinforcement. And if someone told me I couldn't do something, especially when it came to athletics, I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. You know what I mean? And, same with fighting. If somebody said this about me, that I'm going to prove you wrong. And I found that right around the same time when I turned 30, and I found like, it was like, man, that's exhausting to wake up every day and motivate yourself with negative thoughts and emotions, fear, anger, whatever the case may be. And I was like, it gets exhausting, especially for a fighter, you know what I mean? It's just, that's why you have the burnout. The people are like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, why don't we reframe the mind and remember why we did this, which was because you loved it. It was because it was what made you happy. It was what brought you joy. So starting to move with those emotions and thoughts is a lot less fucking taxing and a lot less stressful. And learning to have gratitude for everything that you've already accomplished is huge. Because it happened to Tyson Fury. His whole life, he trained to be the world champ. You know what I mean? Since he was a kid. And that's all he ever thought about. That's all he ever wanted, and was that moment. If he could just reach that moment, then everything would be great. Mm-hmm. And he got there, and he won the fight against Klitschko fairly easily. And he was like, "This is it. Where's all my joy? Where's all my happiness? Where's everything that I've been working for?" And that's when he seeped into that deep depression. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And kind of went off the wall before pulling himself back together. But if we're constantly doing that, then I can't tell you how many times how many great memories I wish I could remember along this process this journey that I've had that I've forgotten about because I was constantly fixated on the next moment. You know what I mean? And that's kind of why I asked, why when you're going, through this journey that you've gone on, if you were, enjoying the process, if you really, had a love for everything that you were doing, or if you were just fixated on obtaining a particular goal. And I think you can have both.
I think I found a way to do that better now. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that model in my head when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And if I had to make a choice of having better emotions in my 20s, or having the results that I got instead, I wouldn't trade. Yeah. I would rather have the negative emotions that I experienced and keep the results. Yeah. They'd say, "Oh, I felt a lot. It felt a lot lighter. I'm broke and dumb. Yeah. I'm poor and stupid. Yeah. But man, I had a good time in my 20s. It felt nice. Yeah. I would never trade that. Yeah. But I take your point, and I agree that don't beat yourself up unnecessarily, but you got to go do the work first. You don't get to go meditate when you didn't do enough work. You don't get to go feel good about yourself when you're a bum and you're not making the effort to go do something significant. You're a person that's doing that is really setting themselves. You're lying to yourself about what the outcome's going to be. Yeah. You're not going to have the same energy in your 50s as you do in your 20s. You're not going. It's not.
Well, the thing is too, the people that are watching this, they obviously want to progress in some fashion. Or
5 or 10% of them, 90% of them are watching for entertainment right now, and they're stupid and they're poor and they're going to stay stupid and they're going to stay poor. And I hope you unfollow. If you're offended by what I'm saying, it's you, dummy. Unfollow. Yeah. Unfollow. But 10% of them actually want to go do something, and they will. Yeah. Those are the people I'm talking to. If that's you, then come click the link and come join us, and I'm happy to help you. But you got to want to help yourself.
Yep. That's it. But me personally too is if you're broke and you're fat and you're whatever you want, if you're content with that and you're actually happy and you don't want to progress, then then whatever. That's what, you know what I mean? That's your life, you know what I mean? I'm not here to judge, but you can't sit here.
I'll judge for both of us.
You can't
You
sit
fat
here,
dummy.
You can't sit here and want to, do better for yourself and then want to blame the rest of the world for your problems when you're not, taking action, taking your life in your own hands. And so, you got to do the work, man. And it's on a physical level, a cognitive level, emotional, whatever. You got to make sure all those boxes are checked off. I feel like, in order to have some fulfillment, because, man, you don't want to get to the end of the road and accomplished everything you wanted and didn't even enjoy it. You know what I mean? You didn't even, looking back, you're just like, well, like, I wish I would have appreciated all the shit that the work that I did put in. You know what I mean? And I think talking to yourself positively, but not lying to yourself, is key. Because a lot of times some people fall into that trap of like, I'm going to talk to myself, I'm going to show myself self-love and encouragement and things like that, and they get into this trap. I'm like, well, I didn't go to the gym today, but that's okay. I needed a rest. You know what I mean? I needed to recover. And then next thing you know, that I haven't gone to the gym 3 or 4 days in a row. And you're lying to yourself if you're sitting here telling yourself it's okay. It's okay. Like, no, like, you got to do the work, but obviously, like, talk to yourself with some compassion. That way it motivates you to keep going forward.
Yeah, I don't fall into that trap of delusion that Chase speaks about, that you don't tell yourself it's okay when you're failing. Don't tell yourself it's going to be great when you're not making an outcome, when you're not making the effort that would lead to a great outcome. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest about what are my hopes and dreams? What's my current level of performance? Where does my performance have to be to get up there closer to them hopes and dreams? And go put in that effort. The time's going to go by anyway. And either in a few months or a few years, you'll be making tremendous progress, or you won't be. But the time will have passed anyway. And the pain of waking up and not accomplishing your goals is a hell of a lot more than the pain of waking up and being like, man, I worked really hard and have all this, everything I ever wanted in life and more. Mm-hmm. The time's going to go by anyway. So if you had to pick your poison, you'd rather make the effort and do things that you're proud of. Nothing wrong with enjoying your life in the process, but don't get too focused. Don't celebrate too early, guys. Don't celebrate too early.
That was one thing I wanted to retouch on when you was talking about the negative reinforcement from whenever you were like, I wouldn't change that mindset when I was younger if I had the choice. And I was thinking the same thing. It's like, I wouldn't want to change that either, because it did get me to this point, you know what I mean? And then two, along the way, it has taught me that suffering is all part of the process. Because like you said, if you didn't use that type of technique to motivate yourself, then you would have never realized that you've got to grow and change into where you flip that switch to where there might be a better, it's all trial and error, you know what I mean? And doing in making mistakes and failing and suffering is all part of growth. It's all part of change. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. It's as simple as that,
I remember when I first started, being serious about MMA stuff. I just started training in November 2021, and Jake Shields is a friend for a number of years. I asked Jake if he'd spend some time helping me out with some wrestling, grappling, basic MMA stuff, and I asked Paulie to come help me with some boxing. Mm-hmm. And for a couple of months, I just had those two guys, and I was only training like 7 days a month, only with those two guys. And I realized very quickly, I was 300 pounds and like 31% fat. I was not fat because I was lazy. I was fat because I focused so much on business at the exclusion of everything else that I made a lot of money. And that was fantastic. But I was like, well, you have a lot of money, and your money will make you more money, and probably you should get your health in better shape.
Yeah.
So I did that. But I realized quick, I'm like, you're not going to be good at any of this shit if you're only training 6-7 days a month. You're not going to be good at any of this. So then I'm like, okay. So then I asked Mike Chandler to come over. I asked Tito to come over, a few other people that I knew. And, pretty soon I built a whole roster. I've got, 20 people coming over in rotation.
Yeah.
When I scaled that up, when I started training, say 16, 18 days a month, my body felt terrible because I'm in my 40s and you're getting smacked, you know what it is.
Yeah.
So you're not even doing good because I'm like a total rookie at that time. So you just get like smacked and abused and you feel, halfway humiliated to yourself. And, for me, I'm kind of laughing at myself while I say this, but for me, you can be kind of a tough guy during the day where you're awake and if something hurts, you're like, okay. But then the part where I was a little soft or a little bit of a sissy is when you're like roll over in the middle of the night and it wakes you up because something your back hurts, your shoulder hurts.
Oh, hey.
And you get out of bed and you like hobble to the bathroom.
Oh, the bathroom's the worst. The bathroom's the worst because it's when you're an athlete, you have to stay hydrated, and so like you're training all these practices and you taking in all these fluids and everything, and so it's like, I gotta piss like 4 times in the middle of the night.
I do
and
too.
Every time I'm waking up to go pee, it's just like, and your body doesn't recover as well because you're not getting deep rest. So you even wake up in the morning, you're just like, at least you're not cramping, I guess,
I was experiencing all that for the first time. So that, and I'm only a few months in. And I'm like, well, I'm making good progress, but my body hurts all the time. You know? And and I just got to laugh at myself a little bit. And I'm like, and he had one of those decision points, and I don't mean to dramatize it, but you might find this relatable. Is like, I'm like, well, either I just have to accept this as part of the process, or you just have to quit. And because if you're going to get good, this is the right path. You got some of the best coaches you could possibly have, but it just sucks. And then, there's days you wake up and you don't feel like it, but Chuck Liddell's, staying over at my place and it's time for training at noon. We're going to go train. So am I going to tell Chuck, hey, Chuck, my arm's a little sore from yesterday. I'm going to tell Glover, hey, Glover, my elbow. My elbow's a little tender.
Yeah.
You're never going to say that shit. You're going to, it's time for training.
Yeah.
So
when I was younger, you probably, like when you're younger, it's a different type of sore. It's just soreness, you know what I mean? Now, it's like as I've progressed, gotten in my 30s, it's like it's the soreness I feel now is like I might break some shit today. You know what I mean? Like and I mean it's definitely especially here at Killcliff too, because like this is the first time I've when I was in Mississippi, like I said, we just kind of trained here and there, it wasn't really a tight knit schedule. You train when you had a fight kind of deal. There wasn't a lot of people. Here's like every day, and I haven't done in twice a day. I haven't done that since football, And even in football, you still have an off season. Here it's, so like now it's like, I'm hurting, like really, like last 2 weeks ago, I was sparring, and I threw a kick and it caught the elbow, and then I was like, my toe kind of hurts, but I had shin guards on, so I sparred one more round, and then my foot started going numb, and I was like, maybe I should look at this, and took my shin guard off, and my toe was like facing this way, completely dislocated, and I'm like, fuck. Before my last fight, I thought I'd just sprained my elbow in camp, and coach was like, Henry and Graham, just do what you can, work through it, blah, 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 and I'm like, man, it fucking hurts, it really hurts, and like, yeah, just put some ice on it, so it was like, iced it up, and then got through the fight, and decided after the fight I was going to get an MRI. Bicep tendon's completely torn. 5 minutes before fighting, Andre Arlovski, warming up in the back, completely tore my meniscus and partial MCL tear. And I'm looking at my coaches and I'm like, I'm not kidding. I'm in the next fight up, co-main event. And I was like, fucking fix my leg, like could do something, like what we're up next, and like, you know what I mean. One of my cornermen is my best friends and a physical therapist as well. He's like, hey man, he's like, your knee's stable, you know what I mean. It's not a stability issue. He said it's just a mobility, issue, and it's gonna hurt like a motherfucker. And that's like, you just gotta, you know what I mean? You just gotta suck it up sometimes, you know, and then lick your wounds later. But I feel like it is important too, like especially getting your, you know, towards you're in your 30s, you've got a lot of miles on the body to pay attention to, and not let your pride, you know, get in the way. Because there's a lot of times where I know I shouldn't have go to practice, and I end up going to practice and completely something up. You know what I mean? So that's being, you know, part of that's being disciplined too, but also don't lie to yourself either. You know what I mean? Just like we talked earlier, don't get into the habit of being like, you know, I think this might be hurting or this might be hurting. I'm just gonna lay low today. Like understand who you are, understand your body, understand your mental framework, get in touch with that, and really be honest with yourself if you're operating at the highest level that you can operate at.
At least a couple times a month I wake up and I'd be like, man, I don't feel like doing whatever it is I'm supposed to do today.
Yeah.
Man, I don't feel like it. And I just laugh at myself and be like, well, you know, the money gods don't care what I feel like. The success gods don't care what I feel like. You know, the success gods don't care about your emotions at all. But they do reward good behavior. If you engage in the right behaviors over a period of time, you tend to get good rewards in life.
And that's when you show yourself some self-love, is when those days, whenever you know it's a hard day and you can go and do it anyways, and they're just like, hey man, you know, you might not have the best say at the practice day, but you showed up and you did what you could do.
And maybe you can't do 100%, but you could show up and do 80%. If you can't do that, you could show up and do 65%.
Yeah.
I had an injury from one of the guys in your gym. I don't need to say it on here, but I was training with one of the guys. It's not his fault. It's mostly my fault. And I don't know, a week or something later, Henry was coming over. We was going to work on, you know, striking. And I didn't say anything to him about it, but he, you know, when the guy came back and said, oh, you know, he got hurt a little bit, and Henry's calling me, so, oh, are you okay? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not okay, but, you know, fucking come over. And he's like, well, you know, no, we can reschedule. We can do. I said, we're not going to reschedule. Like you know, you said you were coming. I said, I'm not going to make you change your plans. Or I'm like, come. And he said, well, but if you're injured, I said, Henry, for sake, I'm not in a wheelchair. And if I was in a wheelchair with some hope of future mobility, like we could watch tape for 6 hours a day and we could talk about the tape, and I'm still making progress. I'm still learning something instead of taking the week off, you know? Yeah. And he kind of laughed about it, and he came, and we did good together. I couldn't do 100% what I would normally do, but we did good together. We made progress. And a lot of people, they love their excuses more than their goals, and they'd be like, you know, any little excuse, they'd be happy to not do what they're supposed to be doing. So that's the part that you hear me, I'm a little grumpy, and I kind of keep poking that button. But there's so many people out there, they're not overtraining like you. They're not overtraining like you would. They're not overtraining like maybe, you know, I would in the areas that I focus on. They're absolutely undertraining. You don't need a day off. You don't need more meditation. You need some more work. And then you could have some self-love after you did something. If you didn't do nothing, what do you got to love about yourself? You know, I think that's a bigger concern in the world. So I don't disagree with what you're saying on any of those things. But and a guy in your position, it makes good sense. And the guys you're surrounded by, it makes good sense. But a guy that's sitting on his couch that's got a lot of bad habits and a lot of low-hanging fruit, you don't need more meditation. You don't need to give himself a... So, oh, you know, look in the mirror. So you're a great human just because you're you. You were born and you're wonderful. Like, now you're a decaying piece of matter that better go do something before you're dead. And you know, if you haven't done something to be proud of, what are you so in love with yourself for? Like, go do something and then have some self-love.
Yeah. Well, I found like one of the key things as far as like getting on track with that and doing the things that you need to do was writing down, blocking out my day instead of just moving throughout the day without intention. Like, you know what I mean? Like just going to practice and do, but really like, because as, you know, as fighters, it's almost the same as entrepreneurs. Like you control pretty much your own schedule. You get lost in the sauce of like complacency or not doing the things you need to do, or even doing the things you need to do, but not holding yourself, like giving yourself credit for it. And so like I started blocking out my day, and I'm talking about it didn't matter what it was. If 7 a.m. breakfast, you know, make this phone call at this time I'm at practice, doing this. And I would have a whole list of times and things I needed to do, and or wanted to do. And at the end of the day, I would go by, and if I did it, I put a check mark by it. If I didn't, I put an X by it. And if I had more checks and X's, then that day was a win. And so what I found was, like, as you're doing that, you're getting that instant gratification. So you're hitting those little dopamine hits, and you're feeling motivated, and it's also it's launching you into your future goals, because that's the problem. It's like when you don't have long-term goals, it's because they don't see the results right then. They don't want to go, do a diet, or get in shape, because they're not seeing the instant results then. You know what I mean? Or become financially stable, because they're not seeing the results right then. Or even in relationships, it's like, oh, this relationship isn't working out for me like right now. I was like, I need to get some gratification through somebody, some chick on social media, or whatever the case may be. And so we all been wired to that, but like doing little things like that, to where you're staying motivated, you know what I mean? And then you're seeing it on paper. That was a kind of a key point for me. And that's when I felt like, that's when I was like, oh, this discipline thing feels kind of good.
It's smart to make those lists and check them off, and then use I did that. What more can I do tomorrow? I can do more tomorrow. What else can I do?
And I too, I was like, I'll have my 3 daily discipline. Like, I'm sure you have a daily discipline that you do, that's like, you have to do it. That, it's uncompromisable. Like, you do it.
What's amazing is you said 3. In place of any type of meditation something I've done for more than half my life, 22, 23 years, before I go to bed, every day. If I had 6 vodka drinks when I was younger, I'd still do this.
Yeah.
I still have the sense to do it. Every day I think about what are the 3 big things I got to do tomorrow. And one of them was always a financial related thing. What can I do tomorrow to have a better financial future? Maybe I got to learn something. Maybe I have to have a meeting. Maybe I have to help a business friend with something. What's the biggest opportunity that would lead to more financial success in the future? Number 2 was always about relationships, and who's a friend or a business ally or a girl or whatever, somebody in my life that I could build a better relationship with that person. It might be several people, but what's the important one? And then the third one is whatever just seemed important at the time. So I thought about money, I thought about relationships, and I thought, well, what's the other thing that just seems important right now that I better get that done tomorrow? And I wake up, I revisit those same 3 things, and and sometimes you had a thought overnight, you thought of a better way to do it. So I wake up and it's 10 minutes before bed, 5 minutes when you wake up. It changed my whole life.
Yep. And that's why, like, one of the Navy SEALs was talking about, I'm sure you've seen the video. He said he was giving a speech, and first thing he said to do, that he recommended that you do every single day, was just wake up and make your bed. Because boom, the first thing you waking up in the morning, you've already accomplished something. Even though it's as simple as making your bed. And you're starting your day off on the right foot. You know what I mean? And then as the day progresses, it might be a good day or a bad day. You know what I mean? But even if it's a shitty day, you're coming home, at least you're coming home to a made bed. You know what I mean? And it was something just simple as that, thinking about things on that level, because how you do anything is how you do everything. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense. So I started off, one of my buddies told me, he said 10 pages a day, read 10 pages of a book a day. He said it'll change your life. And I was like, what the fuck, man? That's bullshit. And I was like, I hate reading, because my mind is everywhere else but right there in front of you on the page. And I realized that's why I needed to do it more. You know what I mean? So at first it took me like an hour to read 10 pages, because I'm ADD. I have to start back over, you know what I mean? On the page or whatever. And so that just kind of wired my brain for staying in the moment and then accomplishing a little goal. And then that's when it developed into, okay, well, that felt good. Let me add another little discipline. Let me add another one. And then the next thing you know, I'm blocking off my whole day and checking it off. And boom, if that day's a win, I'm honest with myself, I put a win. If it's a loss, I put a loss. But then you look at the week. Oh, is that week a win? If I had more days, that week's is the month a win? You know what I mean? And then you kind of see as it's progressing throughout the year, you know what I mean? And you don't realize that, when you're wanting to achieve a goal, you're like, oh, this is going to take forever to get there. It's going to take. But when you're not working towards a goal, it's like time. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, this month just flew by. This just, this year. Yeah, I mean, time it's going to go by at the same speed, whether you're working for something or you're not. So you might, like you said earlier, you might as well be putting in the work, whether or not you're going to obtain your particular goal or not. At least you're working towards something, you know.
Everybody gets the same 168 hours in a week. Winners and losers, rich people, poor people, smart, dumb. Everybody gets 168 hours. And I like what you said. The people that manage that time best are going to have the best outcomes. If you can make those little checklists and all right, win, it give you the confidence to set bigger goals and go check those off, which will give you the confidence to set bigger goals.
Yep.
And you build a nice positive momentum. I think that's a very useful tool that you brought to our chat today.
Well, yeah, and I didn't realize that. I thought I was like being some kind of innovative person as far as like that goes, but I didn't realize that. I was reading one of Bruce Lee's autobiographies, and that's one of the things that he did was he completely blocked off his day. And I write in my journal, well, like how my day went, whatever my thoughts were, whatever the case may be, because in order to fill the cup, you have to empty the cup, you know what I mean? And you have to be able to get those, thoughts out or emotions, or even having a vlog of, how your day went. So, looking back on your life, you might open a page and here's the date, time, where I was, and this is who I was at that moment. And that made, for me, being a fighter and then a football player prior, that's a fear of ours is, not being able to, recall a lot of memories due to brain trauma. And so, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to, even little moments with my kids, a lot of them I wish I would have just wrote down, that I could open a page and, say like, oh, okay, well, this is what me and my son did on this day, just random days. But I feel like that's huge, especially for men, because we, as men, we're taught our whole lives to internalize a lot of our thoughts and emotions, and you ain't gonna go call up your buddy and tell him, hey man, this, my wife said some pretty mean shit to me, or I didn't get the job, or what, because like we're taught that no one gives a, what I mean, and so you have to be able to put that on paper sometimes and move on from it and fill the cup up with something new,
My close friends can call me and tell me some shit like that, and they got exactly 30 seconds. Like the timer starts in my head. Like, all right, you can vent for 30 seconds, but then we got to start working on a solution.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to help solve a problem. But I got about 30 seconds of listening capacity. And I'm like, all right, so just make sure we're on the same page. Did you call me to find a solution?
Or you want to talk?
Maybe that's not the role I play in your life. Maybe find a counselor.
Yeah.
Find a chubby girl to talk to that's willing to listen to your bullshit right now. But do you want to find a solution together?
Yeah.
I can help you with a solution.
Yeah, that's how we're wired. That's how men are wired in general. It's like we're seen as providers and protectors, and so if someone approaches us with a problem that they may be having, our first thing is like, all right, well, let me help you solve it. You know what I mean? I think like that's a lot I've learned throughout my years of being in relationships too. That's a big problem, because sometimes, people don't, especially females, they ain't approaching you looking for a solution. They just want to vent. So I learned, I'm like, all right, before we get started, do you want a solution, or do you just want to vent before we have this conversation? Do you just want someone to talk to? I think that's important. But obviously, you know what I mean, like writing down shit that you need to get off your chest is important, or just memories, or how training went is huge for me too, because I'll be heading in a fight and I'll be like thinking about like, well, all you think about is like days that you didn't have a great practice, or some of the days that you thought maybe you could have went a little bit harder, or whatever the case may be, and you get into this negative kind of, am I ready for the fight? Am I in shape? Am I, you know what I mean? Open your journal, read it. Oh shit, I did all this that day. I did all this. Like I did, you know what I mean? Like, okay, now I understand. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to have that, because we forget about those little moments, because sometimes we are just using that negative reinforcement constantly, you know what I mean, to motivate us. And so
that's a little different talk than I normally have, and a little more spiritual, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. but don't be a bitch. You still got work to do. So get to work. Get to work. Don't be a bitch.
Yeah,
Jason got a fight coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You've been doing some preparation for that fight, or just manifesting some bullshit in your head?
I've been doing it all, man. And that's the thing is, like, that's what I'm trying to bring to the table is a warrior in a garden mentality. You know what I mean? And just being centered and realizing that, like, taking a stoic approach to everything, but checking all the little boxes off. You know what I mean? Because for me, in my career, and I'm sure in a lot of different careers, a lot of it is mental. You know what I mean? And like it's physical as well, but you know, you got to push through certain aspects of it that you need to, and so that was a huge part in kind of incorporating that into the process, because it's one of the check boxes. You know what I'm saying? It is one of the check boxes, just like doing the actual physical work. Doing the mental work is a check box that you have to do, and you might contest to this as well. But I don't know if you've ever competed, but you know, like, what would you say as far as like fighting? How much competing, like, how much do you think is physical and how much do you think is the mental aspect?
You know, that's not my highest area of expertise. I'm not trying to be. I mean, I trained with really some of the greatest guys ever. Hoist comes over, trains with me. Gordon comes over, Chuck, and you know, some bunch of the current guys. Glover's coming over in a couple days. So I got an amazing group of training partners. You know, am I doing great against those guys? Well, you know, I can defend myself for about 3 minutes before I get up now. Where at first you just get up immediately, and then you get up immediately. So I hear your point, but it's not really fair to call that a competition, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of physical things. You know, I got to go do the physical things, but there's plenty of things that I have to keep that in my head. I have to remember precise details of a technique and go drill it and drill it and drill it and keep it alive in your head. Because it's not enough to know something like trivia, like you could talk about it. It's like you got to go do the thing in real time at a time that's inconvenient for you. When you're, you know, when do you get to work on your choke defense? At a time that you're comfortable, or when somebody's trying to choke you?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and I'm just talking about on the basic mental key point I'm trying to focus on there is having a strong fortitude and a belief in yourself. Because if you don't believe that you're capable of accomplishing something, then you're really, I mean, if you would have never thought you were going to be successful, then you probably would have been like, why the f am I doing all this work? You know what I mean? Like,
you touched on that earlier, and it was smart. You know, I said that the instant gratification culture. That, like, you know, a guy's like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then he makes like a half-ass effort for like 5 days.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm not a multimillionaire yet. So he gives up. You know, I mean, that'd be like if I said I want to be a pro fighter, and you know, I tried hard for a week, and you know, I don't feel like I'm not doing as good as you yet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no shit. Of course I'm not. You've been working on it for you know, more than a decade, and so, if you don't have the patience to think about little details and focus on those, success is not for everybody. You know, you could be a manager at Denny's maybe, but you're not going to be doing anything significant. So
and some people find the belief through work, and some people find it within themselves. You know what I mean? Like, some people like, okay, well, I did the work, so now I know I'm going to win, or I know I'm going to get where I need to go. And then you have some people, like, you see it definitely in athletes too, is they'll be in beasts in the gym. They're animals in the gym, and then when the lights come on and they're in the cage, they shit the bed. You know what I mean? And that's just, it's here. You know.
Yeah.
And so having everything kind of checked off, and because I was like, man, why the f is my career not going the way I know it goes? Because, like, I know I'm athletic. I'm one of the more athletic heavyweights in the division. You know what I mean? I speed, power, like, I have all the fundamental tools. It's like, so what is holding me back? You know what I mean? And it was here. It was just being conditioned, you know, throughout life and your career of, you know, like, hey man, like this is the UFC. These guys are really good. These guys are this and that, or these are the best guys of the world. And here I am, I'm the only fucker in Mississippi in the UFC. And like, we don't know. People don't chase their dreams down there. You know what I mean? Sure. And so you get conditioned to these things, and you get to that level, and you're like, damn, am I good enough? You know what I mean? And so like I was like, I got to get the mental aspect of it right. And that was for me. That's
you moved to a different state. You got yourself a great team. I know you're doing the training with those guys because I train with some of those guys, and I've been to your gym and sat in on your training, so I've seen some of your workouts down there.
Yeah.
They're pretty intense.
Yeah.
So you're doing a lot of things right, man. And, Chase has got an event on May 13th. Check him out at May 13th in Charlotte. Yeah. So you're gonna be on the Charlotte card May 13th. Check out Chase's fight. Who's your next victim?
Carl Williams.
Williams.
Young guy. Well, he's younger in his career. Fought the Contender Series. He beat a former Division I wrestler from Penn State. Then he went to his first debut in the UFC and won that fight pretty definitively. He gets after it, even though he's a grappler. It's gonna be a good fight. It's gonna be a hard fight. I hate going against grapplers. So it's just not fun for me. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's like I want to just like how we grew up is like you fought with these right here, So, but regardless, I think it's gonna be a great fight. Keep it on the feet. I'll make sure it keeps it on the feet, and man, it's the last fight on the contract. You gotta win. It's like the pressure's on.
Pressure's on. Check it out on May 13th. He's be fighting in Charlotte. You can check that out on ESPN. If you're serious about some business goals, I'm happy to help you. You click that link. We ain't gonna do no meditation. We're gonna do hard work. You go meditate by yourself, but go meditate with your dog. But we're gonna do hard work if you're on the Moneyberg program. Chase has got hard work to do. He's got an important event coming up. Check it out. Happy to help you. Chase, thank you so much for coming through. Respect, big man.
Yeah.
Signing off. Don't stay poor.
Some people are confused. They say, Derek, what is the 10 Commandments of Wealth? Not the 10 maybes of wealth. It's the 10 core things that you're going to need to know about in detail if you'd like to accumulate significant wealth in your lifetime. Click this link up here to find more information exactly what is the 10 Commandments of Wealth, how is the program structured, what's inside of it, how are you going to benefit from it. If you're doing well already and you'd like to do better, click that link and find out more. There's over 100 hours of content in this program. I've interviewed dozens of world champions that shared what it took for them to win, to be the top Hall of Fame athletes in their respective areas. And I brought a lot of other superstars in there from business, from legal, people that are real world entrepreneurs that made serious money, as I have myself. We all share with you what are the foundations you're going to need to know if you want to be successful yourself. Be a chooser, not a loser. Click that link, find out more. I'll see you inside.